Hi there, this is the thing about MercadoLibre. Market cap right now is about $120 billion. Price, if you believe, over $2,000 and $368 per share. Quite high. Now, you have to look at what they have. Cash plus investments, 10.9 billion. Quite nice. Debt, 6.4 billion. Net cash, 4.4 billion. Compare this amount with the market cap, you can see that it's quite low, tiny. Now, the value of this company, MercadoLibre, lies in their business. Because as you probably know, they offer e-commerce, payments services, banking, and the entire ecosystem for e-commerce, supply chain, advertising, and other services. So this is a complex, MercadoLibre has a complex ecosystem. And if you look at the revenue over the years, 2022, 10.7 billion, 2023, 15 billion, 2024, 28 billion. 2025, it is expected about 25 billion in revenue. So the growth rate year by year was quite high, and this is quite nice. Now, to value this company, yes, you look at their earnings and free cash flow. And here you have to be very careful because there is a big difference between their earnings and free cash flow. For instance, in 2024, earnings were about 1.9 billion, free cash flow 7 billion. There is a big difference. You have here close to 10% in margins and free cash flow 43% margins. And this is a big difference. The market values MercadoLibre based on their free cash flow 7 billion. Of course, for 2025, it is expected a decrease, may happen or not, to 6.2 billion. That means if you apply a price to earnings around 20, the current market cap of 120 billion. Now, when you try to calculate their free cash flow, yes, they have cash flow from operations minus capex, capital expenditures. But the problem is, cash from operations, in my view, is a little bit overstated. Because they have to include because that's the accounting. Also, all the transactions from banking, where they have credit, assets under management, so investments, and insurance. And in my view, their free cash flow is a little bit distorted. You can expect their margins to be about 20% in the long term, but I don't think they can maintain those high margins over 40%, their real earnings. That's why you have to be very careful how you value this company. Yes, you can follow their free cash flow, their numbers, rely on them, but you might have surprises that you have to be very aware of this company. And right now, the stock price, over the last 5 years, went up over 160%. And it's quite a lot. Now, you also have to look at the other indicators, important indicators, such as total payment volume for payments and gross merchandise value for e-commerce. And as you can see, over the last 3 years, total payment volume has doubled from 100 billion to 207 billion. And for 2025, is expected another increase to 240 billion. And this is quite a lot, quite a lot. This is nice. As long as they keep growing this number, they'll do quite well in the future. And gross merchandise volume also has increased year over year. But as you can see, the growth rate wasn't that high. 40 billion, 44 billion, 54 billion, 57 billion. Compared to their total payment volume. and also their revenue. So what I've seen, most of their profits, revenue comes from payments, banking, and all the financial services, plus other new businesses that may come in the future. And here is the thing with their banking segment. It inflates their free cash flow because they also include the provisions for doubtful accounts. I mean, their losses on their credit. And you have to think because, yes, if you want to value this company based on those high margins and you think that they'll grow more in the future, I mean, the free cash flow, you can do that. They might continue for a while, but you might have surprises, especially if their growth stops. So if growth becomes flat, stops, you might have big surprises. That's why I wouldn't go with their free cash flow so high with those margins. I will choose 20%. I recognize that MercadoLibre has a great moat, great ecosystem, and a great scenario, best case scenario, I assume they will make 20% net margins. But over 40%, this is too high. This is too high. You can also look at other companies from the US and China. It's hard to achieve and maintain those margins over 40%. It's quite high. So I'll go with 20%, and if you try to value this company, 20% margins, market cap right now, the valuation be around 100 billion if you want to be conservative. But again, this also depends on the future growth rate. If you want a nice return, this may be the fair value, 100 billion, but again, the growth rate has to continue by 5 to 10% a year, around 10% a year, to have this valuation. Of course, if they grow more than that, as it happened over the last 3 years, they doubled the revenue. So this is a higher growth rate than 10%. Yes, in that case, this market cap is justified. But again, once they reach this size of over 20 billion, it's much harder to grow, to maintain this high growth rate from 10 billion to 15 billion, 50%, and again from 15 billion to 20%. It will be much harder for them to maintain that high growth rate. So the market also includes their high growth rate. They expect they'll continue to grow a lot. Yes, you can go with the market, but if you don't have a margin of safety, you might have surprises in the future, especially at those high prices. Yes, MercadoLibre is a great business. There is no doubt. They are doing a great job in Latin America. They are from Argentina. They are doing quite a great job there. They operate in more countries. But you also have to be aware of the risk. That's why, if you think that they can continue this high growth rate over 10% a year, their free cash flow to get higher and higher, then you can take advantage of the current stock price. But if you also want to pay attention to the risk, you might want to wait or find better investment ideas. For instance, you can have access to my portfolio, where you can see what I buy, what I sell. And by the way, I recently invested in an undervalued company from the US, where the upside 2x in less than 1 year. So if you are interested, go to my profile and press join. And if you have other questions about this business, please let me know in the comments.